Right now, somewhere on your street, there is a yard that everyone slows down to look at. You know the one. And here is what is going to bother you when you find out the truth. The person who owns it is not a better gardener than you. They do not spend more hours out there than you. They are not richer than you. They simply made one quiet decision earlier this season that you didn't, and that single decision is doing all the work for them while they sit on the porch and relax. 11 perennials, one trip to the nursery, a yard so packed with color and motion that people forget what they were doing and just stop and stare. These are plants that spread on their own, return on their own, and hand you brand new plants for free every single year while you do absolutely nothing to deserve it. And here's the part most people get completely wrong. They assume June is too late, so they wait, and they hand away the entire summer for nothing. It is not too late. You can still catch every bit of this season if you move right now. So sit up, because over the next few minutes I am going to tell you exactly what goes in the ground this month, why each one earns its place, and why June is the moment to do it. Plant 1, purple coneflower. Walk into any wild meadow in the eastern half of this country in the heat of July, and you will see it standing tall and unbothered, while everything around it is wilting and begging for water. That toughness is not luck. It is bred into the plant at the root. And it is exactly why this one goes at the front of your list. Echinacea purpurea is hardy clear across USDA zones 3 through 9, in which covers very nearly every place a person could be gardening in the continental United States. The blooms are big, daisy-shaped, and held on strong, upright stems in dusty rose, deep magenta, and warm purple. Each flower built around a raised copper-orange cone that the bees climb all over from first light until the sun drops. It does not give you a quick 2-week show and quit on you either. It carries the garden from the start of summer all the way into fall, blooming steadily through the exact stretch when most beds start to look tired and finished. Now here's the part the garden center will never tell you, because there is no money in it for them. When those flowers fade, do not reach for your shears. Leave the cones standing right where they are. By autumn, each one is packed with seed. Bee and goldfinches will cling to them sideways and upside down, feeding all the way through the first hard frosts. You get a second season of beauty out of the dried seed heads and a living bird feeder built directly into the plant, at zero cost, while your neighbors are out buying plastic feeders and bags of seed. It also self-sows gently right around its own base. So the following spring you find brand new seedlings you never planted and never paid for. Lift and divide an established clump every 3 to 4 years with a sharp spade, and one plant quietly becomes 5 or 6. At $10 to $15 a pot, that is real money coming straight out of the ground. As a true North American native, once it settles in, it needs less water, less feeding, and less attention than almost any imported plant on that same nursery shelf. That dry, sun-baked corner where nothing has ever wanted to live. This is the plant that finally claims it. Now do something for me right now down in the comments. Tell me the one spot in your yard that has beaten every single plant you have ever tried to grow there, and tell me what state you are gardening in while you are at it. Because I promise you, at least 3 plants on today's list were built to win that exact fight. Drop it below. I read every one of them. Plant 2, autumn stonecrop. If you have ever stood in front of a plant in late September and thought to yourself, everything else out here is finished, but this one is only just getting started, then you already understand why this one matters so much. Hylotelephium, the upright sedum most people still know by the old name Autumn Joy, is hardy through USDA zones 3 through 9. Thick, fleshy, blue-green leaves climb sturdy stems and hold up wide, flat clusters of tiny flowers that open soft, dusty pink in late summer, and then slowly deepen week by week into a rich brick red, and finally a coppery rust as the cold nights arrive. When almost nothing else is open for business, butterflies and the last bees of the season swarm all over it, and it is very nearly impossible to kill. This is a plant you can be careless with and still win. Snap off a single stem, push it into bare soil, water it once, and within a few weeks it has rooted itself into a whole new plant. That is not a trick. That is simply how this plant lives. It wants poor, gritty, fast-draining ground, and as much sun as you can give it, and the leaner and meaner you keep the soil, the sturdier it stands. Pamper it with rich soil and too much water, and it flops wide open in the middle and disappoints you. So do yourself a favor and resist the urge to baby it. Look for Autumn Joy for that classic pink to rust shift, or Matrona for darker stems and a moodier look. Leave the dried flower heads standing through the whole winter, and they catch frost and snow like little sculptures scattered across your beds, holding structure in the garden during the months when everything else has gone flat and brown. One plant divided every few autumns will edge an entire pathway within a couple of seasons for nothing more than the price of one afternoon with a shovel. Plant 3 threadleaf coreopsis. Some plants bloom hard for 2 weeks and then make you wait a whole year for the next performance. This is emphatically not one of those plants. Coreopsis verticillata, hardy through USDA zones 4 through 9, throws out cheerful star-shaped flowers in butter yellow and warm gold from the start of summer, right up until the first frost finally tells it to stop. The foliage is fine and feathery, almost like soft green lace, which keeps the entire plant looking airy and graceful, even in the brief gaps between bloom flushes. Here is the one move that doubles your money with this plant. When it starts to look tired around the middle of summer, shear the whole thing back by about a third. Within 2 weeks, it bounces back with a completely fresh wave of flowers, giving you a second full show from one plant in a single season. It shrugs off heat, drought, and the kind of thin, rocky, neglected soil that sends fussier plants straight into the compost. It creeps outward steadily through short underground stems, knitting itself into a low golden carpet that crowds out weeds as it travels. Zagreb is a tough, reliable variety that spreads beautifully and holds up across most American zones. For a long, bright, almost effortless ribbon of color along a walkway or the front edge of a border, very little on the market touches it. 2 plants in, and I want to ask you something honestly. How much money have you spent at the garden center over the last 3 summers replacing things that died on you? If this channel saves you even one of those wasted trips, then hitting subscribe is the easiest free decision you will make all day. Tap that button right now. It costs you absolutely nothing, and it means this kind of plain, practical, no-nonsense information keeps finding you every single week. Easy plant 4, Russian sage. If the deer have turned your garden into their personal buffet 2 years running and you are genuinely out of patience and out of ideas, lean in close because this is the plant that ends that war for good. Salvia youngi, the airy gray-blue plant most of us still call Russian sage, is hardy through USDA zones 4 through 9. Tall, see-through wands of tiny lavender blue flowers rise over silvery, finely cut foliage that smells sharp and clean, and herbal the instant you brush against it. That scent is the entire secret. Deer and rabbits judge a plant by its smell long before they ever get close enough to take a bite. And this one stops them flat at the approach. They sniff once and simply turn around and leave. Unlike a spray repellent that rinses off in the first rain and has to be reapplied every couple of weeks all season long, this plant is the repellent. And it is switched on every hour of every day, all season, year after year, with no effort from you ever again. It blooms for months from the middle of summer well into fall, and it does it on almost no water once it has settled in. It loves heat, it loves lean soil, and more than anything, it loves to be left completely alone. Cut the whole thing back hard in early spring nearly to the ground, and it returns taller and fuller every single year. Denim and lace and little spire are 2 well-behaved varieties that stand upright instead of sprawling. Plant a drift of it, and on a breezy evening, the entire planting shimmers and sways like a low blue-silver haze drifting across your yard. It pairs perfectly with anything yellow or gold, which is precisely why the coneflower and the coreopsis you just planted belong right beside it. Plant 5, hosta. Now, every plant I have named so far wants sun, but you have that one spot, don't you? The dark corner under the big tree where the soil stays dry, the roots are everywhere. And every single thing you have ever tried to plant has slowly thinned out, given up, and vanished. This is the plant that finally fills it and makes it beautiful. Hosta is hardy clear across USDA zones 3 through 9, and it was practically engineered for shade. Broad, sculptural, overlapping leaves in deep blue-green, glowing chartreuse, and crisp white and green variegation build a lush, layered, expensive-looking texture in exactly the places where flowers flatly refuse to grow. In the middle of summer, it sends up slender stalks of pale lavender or pure white bells that the hummingbirds work happily. And here is the value almost nobody mentions out loud. A single mature hosta can be lifted in early spring, sliced cleanly apart with a sharp spade, and turned into 6, 8, even 10 new plants on the spot. every one of them ready to fill another shaded gap somewhere else in your yard. Buy one good hosta a single time, and within a few short years, you have edged every shady bed you own without spending one more dollar. Sum and Substance gives you huge gold leaves that light up a dark corner, while Patriot offers crisp white margins that practically glow in low light. Keep an eye out for slugs in a wet spring, give it a little water while it is getting established, and then step back and let it do all the rest of the work itself. Plant 6, Perennial Salvia. There is a reason professional landscape designers reach for this plant in nearly every border they build, and the moment you see it in full bloom, you will understand it instantly. Salvia nemorosa is hardy through USDA zones 4 through 8, and it produces dense, upright spikes of saturated violet-purple flowers that stand up dead straight and hold their color for weeks on end. That vertical shape is pure gold in a garden, because it gives your beds rhythm and backbone in among all the rounded, mounding, softer plants. Bees and butterflies blanket it from the moment the first spike opens. Look for caradonna, with near black stems that make the purple flowers seem to glow even brighter, or Maynite, niche proven workhorse that performs beautifully across most American zones. Here's the trick that gets you 2 seasons out of one plant. When that first flush of spikes begins to fade, shear them off cleanly, and within a few weeks, the plant pushes out a strong second round of bloom that carries you deep into summer. It is deer-resistant, drought-tolerant, and just about impossible to disappoint. 6 plants in now, and if you have genuinely learned something useful in the last few minutes, I want you to do one thing before I get to plant number 7. Subscribe right now, not at the end, not later, right now. Because here is what I have learned about the people who hit subscribe partway through a video. They are the ones who actually walk outside and do this. They are the ones who put the plants in the ground. They are the ones whose yards look like a completely different place a year from now. Be that person. Hit the subscribe button. Plant 7, bugleweed. This is the plant for the spot that should never have to be mowed, weeded, or fussed over ever again. Ajuga reptans, hardy, clear across USDA zones 3 through 9, is one of the fastest and most determined ground covers you can possibly put in the soil. It sends out runners in every direction that root themselves as they travel, knitting together into a dense, glossy, weed-proof mat that smothers anything trying to come up underneath it before it ever gets a foothold. The foliage alone earns its spot on this list. Look for black scallop, with leaves so dark they read almost purple-black in the sun, or burgundy glow, marbled in soft cream, pink and green, or chocolate chip, a finer-leafed variety for tighter spaces. Then, in late spring, the entire carpet erupts in short, vivid blue flower spikes that pull in the very first bees of the year. It thrives in shade or partial sun, it tolerates light foot traffic along its edges, and it fills bare ground faster than almost anything else you could choose. One word of honest advice: this plant does its job enthusiastically, so give it a defined space with a hard edge it cannot easily cross, a path, a driveway, a buried border, and then turn it loose and let it run. That bare, weedy slope you have given up on, or the strip along the fence line you have stopped trying to plant entirely? This is your answer, and it is a permanent one. Plant 8, Shasta Daisy. There is one thing a garden simply needs in order to feel finished, and that is a clean, honest, in classic flower that makes everything around it look more deliberate and more designed. The Shasta Daisy is exactly that flower. Leucanthemum superbum is hardy through USDA zones 5 through 9, and it gives you crisp white petals fanned around a bright golden eye all summer long, on sturdy stems that were practically made for cutting. Bring an armful indoors, and they will hold in a vase for a full week, pulling an entire room together the way very few cut flowers can. Look for Becky, a standout variety that stands tall on its own without any staking and keeps right on blooming, long after lesser daisies have flopped over and quit. Deadhead the spent flowers as they fade, and it simply keeps producing more. Divide the clump every couple of years in spring, and the free plants pile up fast. It loves full sun and well-drained soil and asks for almost nothing beyond that. Set it among all the purples and golds you have already planted, and watch closely how that pure white makes every single color around it look richer, deeper, and more intentional. 8 plants in, and I will say this plainly: if you are still here, you are not a casual scroller. You are serious about this. So if you have not done it yet, subscribe right now and tap the bell, because the people who commit early are the ones whose gardens actually change. Plant 9, coral bells. Most people plant for flowers, the smartest gardeners plant for foliage, and here's why. Foliage works for you every single day of the season, while flowers come and go in a couple of weeks. Heuchera, hardy through USDA zones 4 through 9, wise, is the plant that proves the point better than anything else. Its leaves come in colors that honestly sound made up until you see them in person. Lime green, warm caramel, burnt amber, deep wine red, near black purple, and silver-veined patterns that shift and catch the light as you move past them. It builds a tidy, rounded mound that stays handsome from spring straight through fall, and in milder zones, it holds its color right through the winter. In early summer, it sends up airy, delicate wands of tiny, bell-shaped flowers that hummingbirds line up to visit. It is happiest in part shade with decent drainage, which makes it the ideal companion to those hostas in all the tricky in-between spots that catch a little morning sun and then sit in afternoon shade. Look for caramel for glowing apricot tones, obsidian for the darkest near-black foliage, or palace purple for deep bronze purple that anchors a bed. Lift and divide it every few years, and you multiply your color for free. Run a ribbon of a single variety along a shaded border, and you get a glowing band of living color in a place most people had already written off as hopeless. Plant 10, Joe Pye weed. If you have a low, damp spot where the ground stays soggy and most plants simply rot and disappear, stop fighting it and plant for it instead. And plant this. Eutrochium is hardy through USDA zones 3 through 9, and in late summer, it rises up into a tall, commanding presence topped with enormous dusky mauve-pink flower domes that you can spot from clear across the yard. On a warm August afternoon, those flower heads vanish completely under a living, moving blanket of butterflies. Swallowtails, monarchs, and fat bumblebees work it relentlessly. Because it is one of the single richest late-season nectar sources a native plant can offer, at the exact moment the pollinators need to fuel up most. Look for Gateway if you want all of that impact without the towering 10-foot height of the wild form, or Baby Joe for a genuinely compact version that fits a smaller bed. It spreads outward steadily by underground rhizomes and fills a big, awkward, wet, ignored corner with bold height, movement, and life in just a couple of seasons. As a North American native, it is built for our heat and our humidity and shrugs off the conditions that wilt fussier imported plants. Leave the seed heads standing through the winter for the birds and for the structure, then cut it back in early spring as the fresh new growth pushes up from the base. Now be honest with me in the comments. Do you have a wet, soggy spot in your yard that you have basically surrendered on? Tell me where you garden while you are at it, your state or your zone, because that problem corner is somebody's idea of paradise. And I want to point you to exactly the right plant for it. Plant 11, Blazing Star. Every plant on this entire list earns its keep, but this last one is pure theater, and it saves its very best for the heart of summer. Leatrice spicata is hardy clear across USDA zones 3 through 9, and it does something almost no other plant in your garden does. It sends up tall, slender purple spikes that bloom from the top down, see opening like slow-motion fireworks while everything else around it opens from the bottom up. Those vertical purple wands punch straight through the rounded, mounded shapes of the rest of your border like exclamation points, and they are an absolute magnet for monarch butterflies and native bees. It grows from a small underground corm that quietly multiplies year after year, so a single clump becomes a thicker, taller, more dramatic stand every season, with zero effort on your part. It thrives in full sun and tolerates poor, dry soil without a word of complaint, and it makes a superb cut flower that holds its color and shape indoors for well over a week. As a tough native prairie plant, it is drought-proof once established and deeply useful to the pollinators that your whole neighborhood and every fruit and vegetable in it quietly depends on. Plant a cluster of it, and by the middle of summer, you have a stand of glowing purple spires that genuinely stops people mid-stride on the sidewalk. 11 plants in, and I want to speak to you directly for 1 second. If you have made it this far, you are not just killing time, you are serious. You want a yard that actually works, built on real information from someone who went and dug for it instead of just reading the back of a seed packet. That is exactly what this channel does, every single week. Subscribe right now if you haven't already, and tap the bell so the next one actually reaches you. The people who subscribe today are the ones whose yards look completely unrecognizable a year from now. Be one of them. See, now let me settle the one question that is probably sitting in the back of your mind. Is June too late to be planting any of this? It is not, and I want to walk you through exactly why, because almost nobody explains this part to you honestly. Every single plant on this list is sold right now, today, in a container, with a full root system already grown and ready to go. And that one fact changes everything. A potted perennial is not sitting around waiting on cool soil to wake up the way a bare root crown or a fresh sown seed has to. The ground is warm now, genuinely warm, and warm soil pushes roots to grow fast. Get one of these in the ground this month, and within days, it is already pressing fresh white roots out into the surrounding soil and giving you real color this very summer, instead of making you stand around waiting until next year. The one and only thing warm soil planting asks of you in return is water. Plant it now, soak it deeply at the base, and keep the soil from drying out for the first 2 or 3 weeks, while those roots reach out and grab hold, and it will establish beautifully. Here is the part that should get you up off the couch and out to the nursery. Every single week that you put this off pushes the planting deeper into July and August, into the hardest, hottest, driest stretch of the entire year, when that exact same plant has to fight far harder just to take hold. And if you keep waiting all the way until fall, you have handed away this whole summer of color, spread, and free growth for nothing at all. Plant in June and you still catch a complete season. That window is open right now, today, and it does not stay open forever. But before you put a single plant in the ground, there are 3 rules that decide whether this entire list thrives for you or just barely hangs on. And most gardening videos skip over every one of them. Rule 1, deal with your drainage first before anything else. Soggy, waterlogged ground rots and kills more spreading perennials than cold, heat, drought, and pests put together. So test it. Dig a hole about a foot deep, fill it all the way up with water, and then watch it. If that water is still sitting there an hour later, you have a drainage problem and you fix it now before you plant, by working coarse grit and compost deep down into the soil, or by building the bed up above the wet ground entirely. Do it once, do it properly, and you permanently change what your yard is capable of growing. Rule 2, treat division as free money. See, because that is exactly what it is. Nearly every plant I named today can be lifted out of the ground and split apart every few years, and every single piece you separate off is a whole, living, blooming plant that cost you nothing but one morning and a sharp spade. At today's nursery, prices of $10 to $20 a pot, one mature, established clump can hand you $50 to $150 worth of brand new plants in a single session. Stop buying a plant twice when you already own it, and it is busy multiplying for you underground. Rule 3, stop fighting your hard spots and start matching the plant to the spot instead. The dry, sun-baked corner, the deep, dry shade under the tree, the soggy, low ground, the lean, rocky strip along the driveway. Yeah, every one of those so-called problem places is the absolute perfect home for something on this list. The moment you quit forcing the wrong plant into the wrong place, gardening stops being a constant uphill battle and quietly starts taking care of itself. So here is where you are now. You just learned 11 plants that will change how your entire yard looks and feels by the middle of this summer, and then keep right on improving it, keep spreading, keep multiplying for free for years and years, without you ever having to start over from scratch again. That is not just a gardening video. That is a real, specific, actionable plan for a yard that pays you back more with every season that passes. If even one of these is going in your ground this June, subscribe right now, because next week we go just as deep. And so does the week after that, and the week after that. Every single week, real plant knowledge, real zone-by-zone guidance, real information that saves you money and changes how your outdoor space actually performs. You do not want to be the person who stumbles onto this channel 6 months from now and wishes they had subscribed today. Then drop me one comment below before you go. Tell me which plant from this list you are putting in the ground first, and tell me what zone or state you are gardening in. I read every single one, I respond to as many as I can, and your answers genuinely shape the videos I make next. This is your yard. This is your season. The window is open right now. Go plant something.